Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news and notes mashup video today, starting with Derek Chisora, Kubrat Pulev facing off this weekend. Press conference has been held, some other fight week activities of course, and it wouldn't be a Derek Chisora fight week without a little bit of controversy. You can see here, a bit of a tense face-off going head to head here. But in terms of some of the comments, getting a little bit spicy in the press conference, Derek Chisora with a graphic here from Matchroom. I'm tired of Pulev's BS. We can all sit here and talk, but all I want to do is fight. My style is effort from round one. He needs to shut the F up. And that is encapsulates that quote from Derek Chisora. And he was repeatedly telling Kubrat Pulev in the press conference to be quiet, and obviously a little bit more spicy language, as it were, repeatedly. And Kubrat Pulev says, some people talk too much, like Derek does. I just believe in myself. I've given Chisora a second chance. Every round will be hard for him. And of course, Kubrat Pulev did beat Derek Chisora the first time back in 2016. The fight didn't exactly catch fire, so let's hope this one does in terms of the action front, because they've done the sales pitch, especially Derek Chisora, and he's kind of on his last legs as a main eventer, Derek Chisora, if he can't actually go out there and get a win. And that's going to be key for him, is to keep winning. All this sort of pre-fight pageantry, it's not going to matter if he loses, because then all of a sudden he probably is not going to be headlining main events again, given he's already got a dozen losses on his record and he really hasn't had a big win for a couple of years now. In terms of the rest of that card, so Fabio Wardley has been confirmed to be facing Kingsley Ibeh, the American heavyweight. And actually, that's not too bad. That's actually better than a couple of the opponents that Wardley has recently faced. So he's 13-0 at the moment, coming off wins over Nick Webb and Daniel Martz. Kingsley Ibeh, for people who don't recall, he sort of rose to a little bit of minor prominence in 2020 in Top Rank's bubble. He had a draw with Guido Vianello, and arguably, he won that fight. So he does have some skills, he does have some pedigree, but shortly after that he was pitched in against Jared Anderson about 6 months later, or less than that, and he was stopped in a fight that was 6 rounds. So he's got a ceiling, but I think based on the sort of matchmaking that has been happening for Fabio Wardley, this is a bit of a step up. But it's not a huge step. There had been talk about Carlos Takam, and Carlos Takam said he was ready and willing to accept that fight. And obviously at this stage, he's chasing final paydays, Carlos Takam. I think I like this fight better just because Ibeh still has some motivation. He's still in his prime, and he's a guy that will still want to prove something in the heavyweight division. So I don't mind it. And Wardley says, once I win this fight, we can start talking very seriously about the British title. I've got a good fight in front of me first, which I feel will give me rounds. And then you have Solomon Dacres, the other Matchroom prospect on the card. He has a record of 3-0 at this point. He's been out of the ring for, the best part of a year now, rehabbing a shoulder injury. He's been tossed in with Kevin Espindola, and this is also, like Wardley, relatively short notice in terms of being announced. Espindola, people really wouldn't have heard much of him at all, except he was in the ring the other week with Ivan Daichko, and he took Daichko, an unbeaten prospect, all 10 rounds. So I think that clearly is how he secured this fight, and probably Matchroom is hoping that after this layoff, Solomon Dacres can get some rounds and return and hopefully look good in the process. In terms of Dacres, he says, I'm going to be back a lot stronger on Saturday night. I just want to stay active and get my name out there. And after all that inactivity, if Espindola can go some rounds, well, I think that's good for Dacres. But also, if he does stop him in any sense in terms of any point in the fight, It's also a little mini statement because Dacres, two-time Olympic bronze medalist, he's got skills and talents, can bang a little bit, but if Dacres gets Espindola out of there, then obviously that's going to look good for him to compare himself against another guy who's been pro for some time and still unbeaten. Moving on to something that's slightly curious. So Hasim Rahman Jr., who has been campaigning at heavyweight in recent years exclusively, is going to be taking on social media personality Jake Paul, and this will be in August. And this is a card that you've got Jeremiah Milton featuring on the undercard. And this announcement, despite Greg Cohen, who promotes Rahman, telling Boxing Scene or claiming that he's never been contacted by anyone involved in this event. So we'll see what happens there. But Rahman is, this is a step up for Paul. I guess it's probably going to be at cruiserweight because Paul doesn't fight at heavyweight. He's been campaigning at cruiserweight. But interesting that a heavyweight's going to be dropping down and chasing that payday. And actually that's caused Rahman's former opponent, James Mackenzie Morrison, or Kenzie Morrison, to post a clip about this. And he seems a bit cut up that he doesn't have the fight. So I'll play a little portion of this almost 2-minute clip.
You know, my current manager, you know, Joe Kelly, manages Hasim Rahman Jr. also. And for some reason they didn't pick me. And I don't know if it has to do with my record or or just the fact that it's the Jake Paul show now, and everybody is making money off of, you know, him beating illegitimate fighters. Now, taking nothing away from Hasim Rahman Jr. because he actually has more credentials than I do, as far as amateur background and professional background, but my question to you guys is, like, which fight do you really want to see?
So, I mean, I kind of look at this and think it's a little bit embarrassing that heavyweights are trying to chase down guys who are social media personalities who fight at cruiserweight, but make of it what you will. Clearly, he's looking at this going, I've just been working in a job all day, and this guy who I just beat is going to get a pretty decent payday against the non-heavyweight, and also someone they would consider still a novice in the sport to some extent. And certainly Rahman is a step up for Paul. Joyce expects that his chance for a heavyweight title could come in 2023, saying, come early next year, the mandatories will start being called. At some point, I will be called to fight for those belts. After the AJ Usyk fight, and depending on if Tyson Fury is going to relinquish his belts or he is going to fight for the undisputed, then it will have to wait for that. In that case, I can fight all the other top heavyweights in the meantime. I'm ready for more. I've got the experience. I've had tough fights all my career, and I've been in strategic in all my fights. I've gone through the division, and now I'm highly ranked. There is talk that there might be an undisputed fight in December. I'm ready and waiting for my chance, and I'll have a couple of fights before then. And I guess in terms of that mandatory shot that Joyce would be chasing, so he's currently #1 ranked contender in the WBO, hasn't been named mandatory by the WBO, but it feels with Frank Warren and at the helm, and with his close relationship to the WBO, at some point that's probably going to happen. But remembering, Usyk was the mandatory for Joshua. He was WBO. So if Usyk maintains the belts, and even putting aside the Tyson Fury comeback stuff, the WBO mandatory is not going to be next in the queue necessarily. The WBA belt hasn't been fought for as a mandatory since 2018. That was Alexander Povetkin, the last one. And then you have Kubrat Pulev, who was the IBF mandatory. So they generally, when there has been 3 belts together, do go in a rotation. So Joyce says he's willing to wait. Well, he just might have to. And actually, Frank Warren has been talking up the prospect of a fight with Deontay Wilder for Joyce. And yeah, I just don't think that's going to happen. I'll cover a little bit of that in another video in the next week or so. talking about some potential Joyce opponents. Another Frank has also been making some noise. Frank Sanchez again calling out Joe Joyce, saying Joyce and I will cross paths 100%. There's no question about that. The only question is, will it be this year or next? The Joyce fight will look very similar to a Jugba. He's very big and strong, but too slow for me. Slower than a Jugba. He will be no problem for me. So this is a case where Frank Sanchez has been calling out every big-name heavyweight in the division in the past couple of weeks. He is due to be fighting at some time near the end of August, and he's got his new trainer, Joe Goosen, having left Eddie Reynoso. So David Hay is predicting simultaneously that Anthony Joshua could retire if he loses, but he could also be the number one heavyweight if he can put it all together. So he says he has the capabilities to be the number one heavyweight on the planet. I believe physically he does. All he has to do is tactically get it right. Then he should be able to beat Usyk. Whoever the team he has around him now, give him the right instructions and he can go out and fulfill his destiny. But he also, in the next breath, says of Anthony Joshua, if he doesn't win, I'm not sure he wants to be in a sport where he knows he is not the best. He got out-hustled by someone he knows he can beat, and if he does everything right and Usyk still beats him, I don't know if there's anything else for him to do in the sport. David Hay there. And just on Anthony Joshua, so this is a couple of days ago, so of the offer from Tyson Fury, which who knows if it was really genuine, or Fury saying, I'll train you for Usyk, Joshua says, is there anything I could learn from him? Honestly, no, not really. For a man that's retired, go and have a beer, relax. Go and help some people who need it. What are you talking about me for? Makes a point there. Murat Gassiev set to return according to his manager, and it could be in the UAE or Serbia in August. So we'll see what happens there. You do have a case of Murat Gassiev being a lot of potential unfulfilled at heavyweight. And someone who is a well and true heavyweight at this point, Jarrell Big Pharmacy Miller. So he's talking of his return later this month. He says, I'm looking forward to getting back in the ring July 23rd. This is going to be on a card in, Tennessee. He says the plan is to fight every month, shake off this rust, get back to where I need to be over the next few months. Big Baby is back. And rounding out this heavyweight news and notes mashup video, Steve Robinson returning on a Wasserman card. This will be on the 30th of July. So Wasserman recently, with their link up with Channel 5, allowing some guys who are signed with Sky and Boxer onto some of their cards. So Robinson gets a run out in his home sort of area. So he says July 30th, we go again in my own back garden. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud enough and hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.